10 years have passed, yet the silence from the southern Indian Ocean remains unbroken. March 8, 2014. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, a Boeing 777 with 239 souls on board, vanished from the sky. We've all heard the official story. A routine flight from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing that went dark, made a series of baffling turns, and flew for hours until its fuel was exhausted, crashing into one of the most remote places on Earth. But this neat summary hides a universe of contradictions, dead ends, and questions that whisper of something far more complex. The official narrative hangs on a thread of electronic handshakes, pings between the aircraft and an Inmarsat satellite. These pings, the only link to the plane after it disappeared from radar, were used to calculate 2 giant arcs across the globe. Based on the estimated fuel, the search was focused on the southern arc. Years of searching, hundreds of millions of dollars spent, and nothing. Not a single piece of the main wreckage has ever been found in the designated search area. We are told the plane is there. But what if the fundamental assumption, that it crashed in that specific zone, is wrong? Let's rewind to the moment everything changed. At 1:21 a.m., the plane's transponder, the device that broadcasts its identity and altitude, went silent. 2 minutes later, its secondary radar signature vanished. The official explanation is that someone in the cockpit deliberately turned it off. But why? The narrative of a rogue pilot, Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, has been pushed hard. Yet, his flight simulator showed no practice runs into the southern Indian Ocean, a detail often misreported. Furthermore, extensive investigations into his life, finances, and mental state found no credible motive. He was a respected senior pilot with a clean record. So, let's challenge that. What if the electrical failure wasn't deliberate? Boeing 777s have a history, albeit rare, of specific electrical events. Remember the 2008 British Airways Flight 38, which lost power to both engines on final approach due to ice in the fuel system? Or the 2011 Egyptair 777 that suffered a catastrophic cockpit fire on the ground, originating from the pilot's oxygen system supply line. An electrical fire near the cockpit could explain the loss of communication systems and the transponder. It could explain incapacitation, but it doesn't explain the subsequent controlled flight path for 7 hours. Or does it? This brings us to a detail often lost in the noise: the solid fly-by-wire system of the 777. The plane isn't flown by direct mechanical links, but by computers interpreting pilot inputs. What if a fire damaged specific systems, leading to a zombie flight? A scenario where the autopilot, perhaps reverting to a default or corrupted heading, flew the plane on a steady course until it ran out of fuel. This aligns with the steady, unwavering path inferred from the satellite pings. It's a flight with no one at the controls, a ghost in the machine. But this still doesn't explain the precise turn back over the Malaysian peninsula. That turn feels deliberate. It feels human. So let's explore a more unsettling hypothesis, one that ventures into the world of electronic warfare. The period of 2014 was a time of heightened geopolitical tension in the South China Sea. What if MH370 was not the target, but collateral damage? Imagine a sophisticated electronic warfare or cyber attack capability being tested in the region. Such a system could potentially spoof or jam navigation and communication systems, effectively making an aircraft electronically invisible. Could such a test have gone wrong, inadvertently severing MH370's link to the outside world and leaving the pilots flying blind? This isn't science fiction. In 2011, Iran claimed to have brought down a US RQ-170 Sentinel drone by hijacking its GPS. The technology exists. A cyber attack could explain the bizarre sequence of systems shutting down, first the transponder, then ACARS. It could explain why the plane didn't just fall out of the sky but continued to fly. The pilots, confused and dealing with cascading system failures, might have turned back toward the nearest major landmark, Penang Island, the captain's hometown. trying to get their bearings. But in this scenario, they never regained full control. The plane, now a digital captive, is flown to a predetermined remote location. But why? Who would have the motive and the means? Look at the cargo manifest. On board were 221 kilograms of lithium-ion batteries. While investigated and officially cleared, lithium-ion battery fires are notoriously difficult to control. But also on that manifest were employees of Freescale Semiconductor, a Texas-based tech firm specializing in, among other things, electronic warfare and cloaking technologies. 4 days after MH370 vanished, a patent for a new semiconductor technology was approved, split 5 ways. 4 of the patent holders were the Freescale employees on that flight. With their deaths, the entire patent was now owned by the 5th holder, the company itself, Freescale Semiconductor, which in turn was owned by the Blackstone Group, a powerful private equity firm with deep connections to U.S. intelligence agencies. Is it just a tragic coincidence? Or is it a motive? Could the flight have been deliberately diverted to seize control of valuable intellectual property and its creators? In this scenario, the plane wasn't meant to crash. It was meant to land. And the most logical, secluded place to land a Boeing 777 in that region without being detected is a military base. Diego Garcia, a massive U.S. military installation in the middle of the Indian Ocean, sits tantalizingly close to the flight path. It has a runway long enough to handle a 777. The official narrative says the plane flew south, but the satellite data, the pings, only gave us distance, not direction. The northern arc, which leads towards Asia and military-heavy regions, was dismissed early on because it was assumed the plane would have been detected by military radar. But what if it was deliberately being shielded from that radar? Think about it. A plane flying a path towards Diego Garcia would have its electronic signature masked by the base's own powerful surveillance systems. No distress call was ever confirmed. The satellite phone on board was never used, despite attempts to call it. This suggests either a rapid, catastrophic event, or a situation where communication was actively blocked. A controlled landing at a black site like Diego Garcia fits the latter. The subsequent debris found on African coastlines? It could be from the plane, but it could also be part of a deliberate misinformation campaign dropped into the ocean currents to support the Southern Ocean crash narrative and send searchers on a multi-million-dollar wild goose chase. The official story wants us to believe in a lone, suicidal pilot and an unfathomable crash into a remote sea. It's a story that, despite its tragedy, is simple, but the details don't add up. The lack of wreckage in the search zone, the impossibly precise final turn, the valuable technological minds and patents on board, the geopolitical context of the South China Sea. When you connect these dots, the official story starts to look less like a conclusion and more like a cover. A carefully constructed narrative to hide a darker truth. A truth about a plane that wasn't lost, but taken. We may never know for certain what happened in the dark skies on March 8, 2014. The silence from the ocean is deafening, but perhaps the real mystery isn't where the plane is, but why we've been so insistent on looking in only one place. Perhaps the real answer lies not in the depths of the ocean, but buried in classified documents and the secrets of those who watch from the shadows. The story of MH370 is more than a mystery. It's a warning that, in our hyper-connected world, anything, even a 200-ton airliner, can be made to simply disappear. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive. The questions surrounding MH370 are endless, and it's by asking them that we keep the search for truth alive. If this sparked your curiosity, please like, share, and subscribe for more investigations into the stories that shape our world. Stay curious and keep questioning.